Your 2003 through 2024 4-liter Toyota 4Runner needs a breath of fresh air and some better performance day to day. This AFE Momentum GT cold air intake with the Pro 5R oiled filter in black is a great system that you'll want to consider for your ride. Now, there are a few things to consider when upgrading your intake, including the filter itself and the housing design, and this choice specifically features a reusable oiled filter and a closed airbox design, both great for increased protection and filtration, as well as a really good flow. Now, this intake is good for the 4Runner owners looking for a quality built system and one that prioritizes performance with premium components and a hassle-free design. Now, the star of the show here is the Pro 5R filter, which not only helps with the additional airflow thanks to the very large 8-inch tall build, but will also have an oiled surface to catch all of the micro contaminants, and this is washable and reusable, so you don't have to worry about replacing it every couple thousand miles or so like the factory one. Now, the housing also has a one-piece design. It's heat resistant, keeping all the air inside of the intake cooler for longer to increase the performance, and according to AFE, this system outflows the factory one by up to 34%, making for a substantial improvement. Now, that also has to do with the design of the intake tube. This does come with two, one for the earlier models and one for the later models. Now, one of the other reasons that this has such a large improvement in flow is from the intake tubes themselves, but that 34% or up to 34% increase is because of the flow here. Now, the housing also has a clear window up top to keep an eye on your filter for maintenance without having to disassemble the whole thing to check it out, and it features a treaded look for some rugged styling underneath the hood. Now, breaking the kit down, starting off with the filter here, this will be AFE's 5-layer cotton gauze oil filter, which again will be cleanable for the lifetime of the filter with AFE's kit. And it's also high flow, using the oil to trap all of those contaminants rather than a thicker media that's going to help there. So you get a high flow and you also get a lot of filtration with this filter. Now, this also includes that one-piece housing and a large intake tube made of a heat-resistant cross-linked polyethylene material, which is essentially a durable plastic, so you can ensure that this is heat-resistant and incredibly durable underneath the hood. Now, this kit also comes with all the stainless steel clamps that you need, all of the hardware, seals, and a silicone coupler for a reliable and straightforward installation. Now, this is a more premium choice for an intake at roughly $500 when it comes to the price point. What I will say is that you're getting excellent quality with the durable materials that you can count on here, so you can trust that these will hold up for the long run, considering the ability to wash and reuse the filter specifically for years to come. And of course, you're going to get a performance increase on top of the usability and long lifespan out of this setup. Now, it also includes a very unique look underneath the hood with the tire tread design on top, which adds a lot of character to the build compared to other simplistic choices and other heat shield choices if you're specifically looking for some of these features when choosing a cold air intake for your 4Runner. Install here is a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking roughly 2 hours or so to get the job done with some basic hand tools, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you got it done a little bit sooner. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to one of our installers here. They're going to show you a detailed breakdown on how you can bolt this up to your 4Runner at home. So that wraps it up for what I have to say. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, rubber mallet, scissors or diagonal cutters, Phillips head screwdriver, T20 Torx driver, 11mm wrench, an extension, 10, 11, 12, and 13mm sockets.
What's up, guys? Today we're installing an intake on our 4Runner. First, we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory intake, and I'll meet you back here for the install.
All right, first thing we're going to do is we have to remove our engine cover. That just lifts off, and then we have 2 lines to disconnect. So we're going to need a pair of pliers just to loosen the clamps. All right, you're just going to grab the front of the engine cover, lift up, and pull out. Put that off to the side. Now we have our first line here. You can either use your fingers to loosen it, or if you need to, use a pair of pliers. Then just move the clamp backwards. Wiggle that off. And then our second line is this smaller line here. Ours comes with a new line that we're going to replace. So we're going to take it off down here. All right, now we're going to take our ratchet with an extension and a 10mm socket. We're going to loosen our clamp at our throttle body and then also take our 10mm bolt out of our mount here. All right, now we're going to disconnect our mass airflow sensor. Just squeeze the tab down and pull up. Then we're going to grab our clip removal tool, and we just have to remove the wiring off of our air box. So we have one here, and then two on the back side here that might be hard to see. So just grab our clip removal tool, get underneath, just lift them up. All right, and then we're going to release the top of our airbox. So there are 4 spring clips going all the way around. Just release them. Lift up, and then pull off your throttle body. Take your air filter out. And now we can take out our 12mm bolts that are on the inside of the airbox. So we're going to grab our ratchet, extension, and 12mm socket, and take them out. There's 2 on the inside and then 1 on the back here. All right, and then you can pull the bottom airbox out.
So now that we have our factory intake removed, we need to pop our mass airflow sensor out so we can transfer it over to our new intake tube. Now we do have 2 intake tubes included in the kit. Depending on your model, you might use this one or the other one. For the engine that we have and the setup, we're going to be using this tube. For the intake setup that has the filter right on top of the intake manifold, you're going to be using this tube. So we're going to grab this one and we're going to transfer everything over into that. So grab a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the 2 screws holding in your mass airflow sensor. And then just wiggle out your sensor, just be careful not to damage it. And now you can take your sensor and drop it into the hole on your new intake tube. And now we have 2 screws included in the kit for this. So I'm using a T20 Torx driver to run these in. And once you have both of them in, you can tighten them both down. And then while we're here, we'll come up to this threaded insert and we're gonna be threading in our fitting for the vacuum line. And then you can just take an 11mm wrench and just snug it up. So now we need to transfer over a couple of the grommets and sleeves on the bottom of our factory airbox into our new one. Now we need to press out the metal sleeve in the middle before we can pop out the grommet. So an easy way to do that is just by taking a 3/8 extension and then just grab a rubber mallet, give it a good whack, and it should come out the other side. And then just push this to get it into the hole, pop it through. And then we can come over to our new airbox. We've got a small hole, 2 bigger holes. We're putting our grommets into those bigger holes, and then we'll press our sleeves in. Get them both popped into place. And then you can just pop those sleeves right into the middle. I'm just supporting the bottom on the inside of the box. Now on our intake box, you do have the option to run this plug up top. If you want a little more airflow into your box, leave it off. If you want to close it up, you can pop it in. For demonstration purposes, since we have it, I'm going to install it. So just push in the corners and then push it all the way in. Now before we get our new intake in here, I'm gonna get this bracket out of the way. So we're just gonna remove the 10mm bolt on the valve cover. Take a 10mm socket to do that. Next, we need to install our spacer onto this hole. This is going to be for the air box, just to bring it up to level with these holes. So just thread that into the hole until it bottoms out. So now we've got our air box just about ready to go in. I'm just going to be installing this weather strip across our inlet here. So all you got to do is just press it on. And now we can drop this into place. So now we can drop our intake box in. Now once again, we have these 3 holes on the bottom. The 2 with the grommets are gonna line up with these 2 holes, and the last one's gonna line up with that spacer that we installed. Showing you this now because it's gonna be very difficult to get an angle of that once it's in here. Drop your box down into place. Line it up with the stud. And then we'll grab 2 of our factory bolts and the nut included in the kit. Now I've got my 2 factory bolts for the holes with the grommet. I'm gonna have to shift my box a little bit to get the holes to line up. And then we've got a flat washer and a nut for the spacer with the stud on it. Now you're gonna need a 12 and a 13 millimeter socket. Your factory bolts are gonna be 12s and the nut is a 13. Now we're gonna get our air filter into the box. So I'm gonna take the biggest clamp in our kit, slide it over the box, and then you can take your filter, slide that and press it all the way into the box. And then we're gonna take an 11 millimeter socket for this clamp. Now our filter is nice and tight, that's not going anywhere. Now we can work on our intake tube. So I'm gonna take my coupler with a clamp and slide that onto the throttle body. I've got my hand inside the coupler, stretching it around the throttle body. Now it's all the way in. So we're gonna take our intake tube. I'm gonna grab my second clamp on here before I forget that. Slide it into your intake box and then work it inside of that coupler. I'm actually gonna leave that clamp off. It's gonna make it a little bit easier to get this coupler around our intake tube. And now it's fully seated all the way around my tube. So now what I'm gonna do with my clamp is just thread this nut off, open it up, wrap it around that coupler, squeeze your clamp enough to thread your nut on. And I'm just gonna make sure I got everything in place. I wanna be mindful of this breather hose. I don't want this portion of the clamp back here. It's gonna block it a little bit, so I have that clamp on top. Now I'm just gonna grab an 11 millimeter socket, tighten down that clamp. Make sure that your coupler and clamp are fully seated all the way around before you tighten it. And I'll come back to my intake box, tighten down the clamp for the tube to the filter. Just give it a good tug, make sure it's not coming loose anywhere, and then we can hook up all our stuff in the middle. So now we can reconnect our breather hose. And you can pinch the clamp and work that into place. Then grab the connector for your mass airflow sensor. Plug that in until you get the click. And then we've got our vacuum line going from our intake tube back to the fuel pressure regulator. Now we've got a lot of hose here, so I'm going to be trimming this to length. So I'm going to slide it onto our regulator. Push that all the way on. And I'm still gonna leave a little bit of slack here so that it's not pulled tight. The pulled tight length would be right about there. So I'm just gonna back it up a little bit and take a pair of diagonal cutters, cut my vacuum line, and then I'm just gonna push it onto that barbed fitting. Now we just need to reinstall our engine cover. We've got these clips that are going on the grommets in the back, and then these 2 grommets that are coming down onto these 2 pins. So get it pressed on at the back first, fold it down, press it down. So
So that'll wrap up this review and install of the AFE Momentum GT cold air intake with Pro 5R oiled filter in black for your 2003 and newer 4-liter 4Runner. Thanks for watching, and for all things 4Runner, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.